Roughly 3,000 years ago, while sitting around a fire, a young child turned to their parent and asked, "What is all of this? What is this vastness that is our world, this plane of human experience, land and sea and sky that seems to be without end?" Though our ancestors were not scientists, they did have wisdom to share. So they searched their hearts and minds. With divine inspiration, they shared a story that every child should hear, a conception of the world where humanity was positioned at the center of all things. Out of nothingness, wild and waste, a great sentient power shaped and formed order from chaos, separated light from darkness, the sky from sea, formed the earth and plants and trees, adorned the sky with sun and moon and stars, providing warmth and light, pushing back the darkness. This world was vast, but soon would be filled with creatures of the air and sea and land. Then, this world teeming with life and light was addressed by that great sentient power that spoke these words, "Let us together make an earthling. Let us make humanity in our image, after our likeness, and let it have dominion over all that is created." And when we were formed from that earth and all that was created before us, we were instructed to be fruitful and multiply. And it was then that God saw that what had been created was very good, and God rested. But that story never fully satisfied, because it left out our purpose, and the questions of children keep coming. And perhaps as the child matured, new questions arose about why we live in this vast and beautiful world. And so new answers emerged. We who were formed from the earth and received the breath of the divine, we who were made with the help of all creation, were placed into a spectacular garden where we would be given the responsibility to tend the garden, to appreciate its goodness, and to sustain it. But all things change, and we were sent out into the vastness of the world. We left the garden to spread out over the earth, an earth that was stretched beyond the horizons, where our cradle was rocked by a gentle breeze, and the sun and the moon and the stars circled us dutifully, with humanity at its center. All of this, all of it was created for us. We were once a part of the garden. All of creation was our brother, our sister, for within our very being is the sun and moon and stars, light and darkness, earth and sky, and the animals with whom God helped form humanity into a mosaic of all life. These teachings come from ancient wisdom. They are far from science. We know that the world is not truly 5,782 years of age as of today. This mythic story is not what we find in the books of scientific inquiry. These are not the words of scientists who more accurately describe the formation of our universe, our galaxy, and our planet Earth. But this expression of deep wisdom that we are reminded of as we turn the page into a new year and celebrate that this is the birthday of the world calls us to remember that this is our Jewish Earth Day, our celebration of creation, our exuberance at existence, and our reflection on renewal. I want to share with you an image. It comes from the Voyager spacecraft taken on February 14th, 1990. If you can see it, and if you can, you don't need glasses, you can see a little blue dot. That dot is us. The mission objective of the Voyager interstellar mission, which continues today, is to extend NASA's exploration of the solar system beyond the neighborhood of our outer planets to the outer limits of the sun's sphere of influence, and possibly beyond. But on that day in 1990, the Voyager spacecraft, the farthest human-made object, took the farthest selfie we have ever taken. This picture makes me feel very small, like dust and ashes. This picture also makes me feel concerned, because the science that allowed us to take this extraordinary selfie is also teaching us that we have been poor gardeners of late, and we are failing in our responsibilities. This is our home. We have no other. It is small and it is precious, and we are failing to tend to it. There are many very important topics for us to discuss today. This year hasn't made it easy to choose from among the many vital spiritual lessons that we need right now. Every year, I think of a list of ideas I wish to share with you. And every year I ask myself, are these timely or timeless? Is it reflective of our people's concerns or hopes or dreams? Will the words that are shared help lead a person to a better life or a deeper connection with the holiness in our lives? And in years past, our relationship with our environment has always been on the list, but seemed less important than the rest, and so it would fall to the wayside. And just always seemed less pressing and less of a danger, less important and less edifying. I realize now that fact is a reflection of how we human beings too often take for granted what is most important. And I realize now that my complacency in this regard is a reflection of our inability to recognize danger until it is urgently staring us in the face. But danger is staring us in the face, and our situation is urgent. Our High Holiday liturgy is filled with warnings. It poses questions that are at times hard to hear. One of those questions posed during the Unatana Tokef prayer asks the following: who by fire and who by water? If we needed a reminder of the urgency of this question, we need only cast our attention to the news. Even in recent weeks, so many have lost their homes, their livelihoods, and their very lives in hurricanes and floods in the south and in the east. So many have watched their homes and precious possessions go up in smoke in the west. So many have lost so much in fire and in water. We need to face facts. Our climate is changing, and we are seeing the consequences. In my childhood, I remember feeling concerned when we were told that if we didn't make drastic changes, the result would be that in a few decades we would see terrible results. And while I was in my childhood concerned about this mildly apocalyptic projection, I felt some relief when I realized I would be an old man of 40 when those disasters were expected to take place. Well, these disasters we are seeing now. Well, I turned 43 last month, and I don't feel that old despite what my children might say. And scientists are now making new projections about what the world will look like in the next 30 years. The United Nations is releasing significant findings pertaining to the dangers that climate change presents to humanity. And let me tell you, I feel no sense of relief like I did when I was a child, that the terrible consequences of our inaction will bring more destruction, pain, and suffering in the decades to come. Not when I look into the eyes of my children, or I look into the faces of your children and your grandchildren as they set out on their journeys of life. In moments such as these, moments of crisis, I've always looked to the wisdom of our tradition to point a way. The story of Genesis, it fills me up. It makes me feel as though all of this was created just for me. The image from Voyager fills me with wonder at the enormity of it all, but also makes me feel as though I am a speck in the vastness of space and time, like dust and ashes. But neither feeling is entirely a bad thing, if they are allowed to exist in balance with each other. A great Hasidic rabbi named Simcha Bunim shared a powerful teaching over 120 years ago. He said, everyone must have 2 pockets with a note in each pocket, so that he or she can reach into one or the other depending on the need. When feeling lonely and depressed, discouraged, or disconsolate, one should reach into the right pocket and there find the words, Bishvili nivra ha'olam. The world was created for me. But when feeling high and mighty, one should reach into the left pocket and find the words of Anochi afar ve'efer, I am but dust and ashes. We need both pockets to live a life of balance, reaching into one and not the other. That could lead us to destruction. So let us reach into one pocket. All of this was created just for me. When the world seemed limitless and we were at the center of it all, when the sun, the moon, and stars revolved around us, the world was ours to subdue. We could tame the beasts, plant our crops to stave off hunger. We could shelter ourselves from the storms. As we advanced in our knowledge, we made wondrous discoveries. We learned to make machines that ran off the remains of life from Earth's past. We strove for the moon and stepped upon it. We strive for Mars and beyond. We build massive buildings that scrape the sky. We, the children of Adam, have harnessed the atom. We cure diseases, feed numbers that would have been unimaginable in the past. However, the world, once gloriously large, has become smaller, but our ambition for more is never quelled. Now there are fewer frontiers, and this world created just for us, we are discovering it has its limits. The energy that allows us to power our lives sends toxins into the air and warms our earth beyond our ability to control. And we have become distant from the natural world from which we emerged. The garden feels very far away. But what remains is a confidence that we who bear the breath of the divine, we who were created in harmony with all life and existence, we are imbued with everything we need to find a path to the future. We can make our way because all of this was created just for us. Now let us reach into the other pocket. I am merely dust and ashes. One of the great spiritual truths of this moment of gathering for the high holidays is that we are in communion, not just with each other, we who are bound together in space, but we are also in communion with the generations that precede us. Bound together through time, we are a link in a sacred chain of tradition, and like hands that reach out to hands, we are spiritually reaching with words and with deeds to those generations that have stood in our place with hopes and dreams for our future. They've returned to dust and ashes, to the earth from which we emerged, but their dreams for us, their hopes remain ever present. They are written on our hearts and our minds. We also know that our time on this earth is limited. We will pass on, and what we leave to the next generations, that will define us. Understanding our place and our connections through the ages, and even our own mortality, is all a powerful aid in setting things right. But if we believe that we are only dust and ashes and that our actions can't bring positive change because we're too small or too insignificant to meet the overwhelming challenges that confront us, then we might become frozen, unable to see in ourselves the potential good that we can bring. If we only reach into that pocket of dust and ashes, then we will certainly fail. But we are not powerless. Rather, we are powerful. We are able to change. We are more than dust and ashes. We must find balance. We are dust and ashes, and we are the center of all creation. And our answers can be found in both pockets. I want to share with you some wisdom that comes from the indigenous community, a people whose land we stand on today. There's a profound understanding that what we do now impacts the generations to come. In a beautiful text from the Seneca Nation, we learn the following. When you sit in council for the welfare of the people, you must not think of yourself or of your family, not even of your generation. Make your decisions on behalf of the 7 generations coming so that they may enjoy what you have today. Right now, the question of whether 7 generations from now there will be people gathering to commemorate the birthday of our world is an open one. However, with vision and with action, I believe we can tip the scales for the generations that will follow. And here's how. Congregation Shalom is a home amidst our homes. We've always endeavored to study and teach the ethical and spiritual ideals of Judaism and to integrate these ideals into the present-day world. And so I propose the following. Let our physical plant, our physical sanctuary, be as environmentally friendly as possible. Let us strive to reduce our congregation's energy consumption. Let's reduce, reuse, and recycle our waste. Let us find innovative ideas from gardens to solar to highlight what can be a more balanced way of life. And let us take moments through prayer and meditation to appreciate nature as a community so that our appreciation and spiritual connection can inspire us to conserve what we have. Let these acts inspire our community to think about their own homes as sanctuaries that are in balance with the nature that surrounds us. But some of what we must do takes community and collective action, which is why I'm proud of our congregation's efforts to establish a Dayenu circle at Shalom. I want to thank David Wolfson and Lise Moulton for initiating and stewarding this group. Dayenu circles are a grassroots effort nationally whose mission is to secure a just, livable, and sustainable world for all people for generations to come by building a multi-generational Jewish movement that confronts the climate crisis with spiritual audacity and bold political action. And this group is saying, Dayenu, it's enough. We must change our path to maintain the garden so that it can continue for the next generations. And there are many ways that you can be a part of this circle. At this moment, there are 3 teams. Team Tikkun Olam, which will look at global and national issues in which we can get involved. Team Ha'ir will look at community and local issues and partner and support organizations doing work in the field of environmental justice and team up with other synagogues, Jewish and interfaith organizations to act. Currently, we are exploring new state legislation that might lead to the construction of a Jewish community solar farm. And there's a team Hillel, which explores personal actions, whether it be related to solar, composting, and when acted upon cumulatively, we will make a difference. If you're interested, and I hope you are, you can email the congregation at info@cong-shalom.org, and we can let you know when meetings are going to take place and when we can take action in ways that are small or large. The story of creation and our responsibilities to this world is profoundly important to me. It was almost 9 years ago that I was preparing for Rosh Hashanah when my oldest daughter was born. And though I continued to come to services in that first week of her life, I slept at the hospital every night. And I'll never forget those nights preparing to read Torah for Rosh Hashanah's second day and standing over her crib and chanting, Breshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, when God began to create the heavens and the earth. This was the first story I ever read to her. It's the story we read every year on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. It's the story I hope the generations to come will read every year. When the next generation is sitting at our feet, we want them to feel as though all of this was created just for them. And when I look at the generations to come, it's as though the sun and the moon and the stars rotate around them. I know that I'm not different from you in that feeling. And at the same time, we all must realize that our time on this earth is limited, that we are merely dust and ashes. And that should not cause us to despair. That should cause us to act. Act to make the world a place of spiritual growth and spiritual balance, to tend the garden, to live in harmony with the acts of creation we share, and to preserve this world for generations to come. So let me conclude with the image of the little pale blue dot that is planet Earth. At the time the picture was taken, Carl Sagan, the great champion of understanding our universe, expounded on its importance. He said, "Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives, the aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam." And though his words speak to the grandness of the universe and the nature of our existence on this planet Earth, he also shared the following: all of this underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. These beautiful words and this image make me feel small, yet precious, filled with awe at the vastness of it all and yet filled with hope. Hope that we can resume our rightful path to tend the garden and watch with satisfaction the emergence of a new day and a new year. Shana Tova. Happy New Year, everyone.